A man stands barefoot in the sharp gravel of the Midianite desert, staring at a thorn bush that is exhaling fire but not turning to ash, because it feels too theatrical, too heavy, too archaic for a modern conversation. We treat it like a relic of the King James era, or the heavy knot of anxiety sitting just under your ribs that you try to convince yourself is just adult responsibility. You can feel the sweat on your palms when the conviction hits, and your immediate instinct is to drown it out with noise. To speak that ancient word is to completely forfeit control. Your constant, exhausting busyness is not a badge of honor. It is a highly effective hiding place. You know exactly what the gentle, terrifying pressure of that divine voice feels like. It is the sudden, heavy push to finally drop a lifelong grievance. It is the terrifying nudge to speak a truth that will disrupt your comfortable social circle. It is the quiet, the relentless pull to simply sit in the silence when your overstimulated brain is begging for a distraction. But stepping into the light to answer that pull means standing completely exposed before a gaze that sees every single fracture in your foundation. We prefer to negotiate. We want to read the terms and conditions before we sign the parchment. You want to say, "Here I am, provided you do not ask me to give up my career." You want to say, "Here I am, but please do not touch my coping mechanisms." But HINENI does not allow for modifiers. A word reserved for stained glass windows and choir robes. Most people assume this word is just ancient punctuation. It is the terrifying vulnerability of being fully seen and fully available, without a single contingency plan in your back pocket. It is giving up the right to be the author of your own story. And for a creature built to survive, that level of surrender feels like a death sentence. And yet, the divine pursuit does not stop just because we are terrified of the fire. The overarching narrative of Scripture does not conclude with humanity successfully hiding in the dark while God searches the bushes. It concludes with the sky splitting open one final time. And in that climactic moment, God takes the very word we were too frightened to speak, and he turns the entire equation violently upside down. An old man sits on the sharp volcanic rock of a penal colony. The Aegean Sea crashes against the black stone. The salt wind stings his eyes. John the Apostle is exiled, tired, and waiting to die in the dirt of Patmos. Then the sky violently unzips. The physical universe folds back like a scroll. A new heaven appears. A new earth descends. The massive, separating ocean evaporates into nothing, and a voice thunders directly from the throne of the universe. The voice does not ask a question. It does not offer a timeline. The voice drops the exact same Greek word Mary whispered in the shadows of Nazareth. Idu, Idu, I am making all things new. They think it is a throat-clearing noise the prophets use before the actual important message begins. But if you look closer at the original Hebrew letters, look, see, behold, for thousands of years, the Creator waited for the creature to speak this word. Abraham said it with a heavy knife in his hand. Moses said it with his face pressed into the hot sand. Isaiah said it with a burned, bleeding mouth. Mary said it with a surrendered womb. The human being said, "Here I am," and stepped into the fire. The creature offered its fragile life to the Maker. But at the end of the biblical timeline, the equation flips. The Creator speaks the word to the creature. God says Ido. He commands the human gaze. He forces the exhausted, broken remnants of humanity to look directly at what he is doing. This is not a distant, abstract promise of a better afterlife. It is a violent, beautiful collision. The Maker of the cosmos is not abandoning the ruined project. He is invading the wreckage. Death stops. Mourning breaks. Pain fractures. The old order of decay collapses under the weight of his descending presence. God himself declares his ultimate, cosmic HINENI to humanity. He is saying, "Look at me. I am here. And I am putting the shattered pieces back together." The exact same word that demanded the sacrifice of Abraham's future is now the word that permanently slaughters death itself. The blank check is finally cashed, and the payout is the restoration of the universe. But until that golden city physically touches down on the dirt of this earth, carved into the scrolls, at the Greek equivalent that explodes across the New Testament, at what actually happens to the human nervous system, you and I are still living in the middle of the narrative. We are still breathing the dust of a fractured world. We are still waking up with that heavy knot of anxiety sitting under our ribs. And in this exhausting, beautiful tension between the garden and the city, the ancient voice is still walking through the trees, calling your name. We spend most of our lives in the space between the burning bush and the descending city. We do not often get the earthquake. We do not get messengers of blinding light dropping into our living rooms to alter our biology. What we get is Tuesday morning. We get the harsh blare of an alarm clock in the dark. We get the cold grip of a steering wheel in dead traffic. We get the sterile, chemical smell of a hospital waiting room where the news was not what we prayed for. And it is exactly in those places, in the crushing, mundane gravity of ordinary time, that the ancient word is actually forged. We spend so much energy trying to curate our availability. We want to sweep the dirt out of the house before we invite the divine presence inside. We think if we can just break the secret habit, or fix the deep fracture in the family, or finally stabilize the bank account, the moment this word is spoken, you start to see something the sanitized reading completely misses. This word is not a grammatical placeholder. Then we will be strong enough to step up and speak the word. But HINENI is never spoken from a place of arrival. It is always spoken from a place of profound deficit. Moses was a stuttering fugitive smelling the ozone of a burning shrub. Isaiah was a terrified man with unclean lips. Mary was a young woman with absolutely zero social capital. They did not bring leverage to the encounter. They brought empty hands. But maybe the part that stays with me most is the absolute smallness of the word when it is spoken in the blind dark. It is easy to imagine saying it when the adrenaline is pumping and the fire is visible. It is much harder to speak it when the demand is simply to stay faithful in a season that feels entirely invisible. The text forces us to look at the posture, not just the spectacle. Abraham's greatest surrender was not the dramatic moment the heavy iron knife was raised. It was the 3 days of silent, agonizing walking up the mountain, setting one dusty sandal in front of the other. Mary's sacrifice was not just the moment she bowed her head. It was the next morning, when she had to walk out into the harsh glare of the sun and look her neighbors in the eye. Availability is not a sudden, heroic leap. It is a quiet, agonizing refusal to close your hands. It is a collision. It is not a polite acknowledgement of a voice. It is the surrender of a life. It is the decision to stop running from the reality of your own limitations, to stop demanding that God only meet you in the spectacular, and to finally stand completely still in the mess of the present moment. Because the creator of the cosmos does not need your perfection. He does not need your meticulously crafted 5-year plan or your resume of spiritual achievements. He only needs your location. And when you finally drop the armor and give it to him, you step into a pattern that has been repeating since the dust of the ancient world. An old man raised a heavy iron knife on a mountain of rock, and a bloodline was preserved. A stuttering fugitive stood before a burning thorn bush, and an empire was brought to its knees. A young boy woke up in the dark of a sacred tent, and a corrupt priesthood was dismantled. A terrified prophet felt a searing coal pressed against his mouth, and a human arrow was fired into the dark. A teenage girl surrendered her reputation in a cold stone room, and the creator of the cosmos took on human flesh. An exiled man sat on the sharp volcanic rock of Patmos, and the curtain of the physical universe was violently pulled back. When a human being speaks this word to God, it permanently alters the trajectory of their bloodline. When God speaks this word to a human being, and the God of the heavens spoke the ancient word into the wreckage of this earth, and the empire of death was shattered forever. One word. One. Collision. But here's the part I keep coming back to. The absolute lack of leverage. Not a single person who spoke this word had the luxury of reading the terms and conditions first. They did not speak it from a place of safety. And they did not speak it when they understood the plan. They spoke it with empty hands, standing in the dust, fully exposed to a voice that demanded everything. If you are in a season where the quiet of your own life terrifies you, where the divine pull feels like a threat to your carefully constructed stability, and where your first instinct is to retreat into the thick foliage of your busyness, stop hiding. The voice walking through the garden is not looking for your resume. He is not waiting for you to fix the fractures in your foundation. This is not a negotiation. It is a surrender. He is only asking for your location. If this opens something up in you today, subscribe and leave a comment. Even one word helps. It fractures the laws of physics. The entire timeline of the biblical narrative hinges on a handful of moments where the veil between heaven and earth. Share this with someone who is exhausted from trying to curate their availability. Pray for us as we keep digging into these texts. And may the God who has never once looked away from your hiding place walk with you into the blinding light and bring you out, carrying a freedom you could not have received any other way, is suddenly ripped open. And almost every single one of those moments is anchored by this exact utterance. To feel the weight of what is actually happening when the heavens open, you have to stop reading past the most dangerous word in the text. He smells the sharp tang of ozone and the dry crackle of desert wood. A voice calls his name twice from the center of the flame. You have to step back into the ancient dirt and listen to the grammar of the interruption. A scribe drags a reed pen across cured animal skin, tracing 3 consonants of the Hebrew alphabet. He writes the letter he, the letter none, and another he. The word is hine. It appears over 1,000 times in the Hebrew Bible. And modern English committees generally do not know what to do with it, because English demands smooth sentences and logical flow. Translators often flatten this word into a soft transition. They render it as now, or then, or and, or they simply delete it from the page so the narrative reads more cleanly. In older translations, it survives as the formal, slightly awkward, behold. But in the ancient mind, hine is highly physical. It is the linguistic equivalent of a sudden, sharp intake of breath. It is the snap of a dry branch in a dark forest that makes you stop dead in your tracks and turn your head. Hebrew scholars call it a demonstrative particle, an interjection used to express intense, immediate surprise. When the biblical narrator uses hina, the text is literally commanding the reader to stop looking at the story from the outside and to step behind the eyes of the character experiencing the shock. The camera angle snaps from wide to extreme close-up. When Jacob wakes up in the dirt with his head on a stone, the text does not merely, and he answers with a single word. An old man lifts a heavy blade over his own son on a mountain of rock. Say he saw a ladder reaching to heaven. It says, and hina, a ladder set up on the earth. You are supposed to feel the whiplash of a man staring at a tear in the fabric of reality. Hine is not a polite request for your attention. It is a hand grabbing you by the collar and forcing you to look at the impossible. But the grammar does something even stranger when it shifts from a narrator describing a scene to a human being responding to a divine voice. When you take this exclamation of shock, this hina, and you add the first-person singular suffix, the I or the me, the word transforms. It becomes hineni, literally, look at me, or, as we translate it, here I am. When a human being speaks this word back to God, they are not just giving their geographic location. God does not need a GPS pin dropped in the desert. The word is a total, unfiltered offering of the self. It means, look upon me. All my attention is fixed on you, and whatever you are about to ask, the answer is already yes. It is a terrifying posture to take, and the very first time a human being speaks this exact word in the biblical record, he is standing at the edge of the most devastating command God ever issued. A voice breaks the silence of the camp. It is night. The desert wind pulls at the tent flaps. The voice calls a name, Abraham, and a voice from the sky yells his name to stop. He drops his weapon and answers with the exact same word. The old man opens his eyes. He breathes in the dust. He does not ask who is speaking. He does not ask what the voice wants. He utters the word, HINENI. Then the mandate drops like an anvil. Take your son, your only son, Isaac, the one you love. Go to the region of Moriah. Offer him there in the fire. The text records no argument. It records no negotiation. It only records motion. Abraham splits the wood. The heavy axe bites into the timber. He saddles the beast. He walks. 1 day, 2 days, 3 days of dust, 3 days of dead silence, 3 days of staring at the back of the boy who carries the fire and the knife. They reach the summit. They stack the rough stones. They arrange the wood. The boy realizes there is no lamb. The boy is bound. The ropes dig into Isaac's wrists. The old man raises his arm. The heavy metal catches the glare of the sun. The blade is falling. A voice tears the sky apart. Abraham. Abraham! The old man freezes. His chest heaves. And he speaks the word a second time. HINENI. He says it in the quiet of the tent. He says it with the weapon in his hand. The posture never shifts. HINENI is not a statement of location. It is a blank check, signed with a human life. When you say HINENI, you are stepping off the edge of the map. A teenage girl sits in a cold stone house in Nazareth, while an angel alters the biology of her womb. You are telling the creator of the cosmos that your future is no longer your property. You are giving up the right to dictate the terms of your own survival. You do not hold back the sun. You do not hold back the promise. You cannot negotiate with a burning bush. And you do not bring a list of demands to a mountain of sacrifice. Abraham sets the pattern. The knife is lowered. The ram is found bleeding in the thorns. But the word is now woven into the DNA of the people. It becomes the ultimate threshold. Generations pass. Kingdoms rise and fracture. The word waits. And hundreds of years later, in a room choking on smoke and shaking with an earthquake, another man will stand before the throne of God and use this exact word to step straight into the fire. The year is 740 BC, and the heavy wooden doorposts of the temple are violently shaking. The air is choking with thick incense smoke. A king is dead. The nation is fractured. And a prophet named Isaiah is standing in the middle of a vision that should kill him. A six-winged seraph has just taken a glowing, searing hot coal from the altar with tongs and pressed it directly against Isaiah's lips, and she bows her head and speaks it too. If you read their answers in a modern English Bible, you can almost smell the burning flesh. Then, a voice that vibrates through the stone floor asks a question. Whom shall I send? And who will go for us? Isaiah answers. In your English translation, he says, Here am I. Send me. But in the Hebrew text, the prophet speaks exactly 2 words. 2 massive, earth-shattering words. HINENI shlachani. We already know HINENI. It is the demonstrative particle, hina, fused with the first-person self. But it is the pairing here that changes the weight of the moment entirely. The second word, shlachani, comes from the Hebrew root shalach. Shalach means to send away, to cast out, or to shoot an arrow from a bow. In the entire Hebrew Bible, the word hinna appears over 1,000 times, usually as a narrative marker. But HINENI, spoken by a human being directly to the Creator, is exceedingly rare. It is reserved exclusively for the hinge points of redemptive history. We see it spoken by Moses in the desert before he marches in to confront an empire. We see it spoken by the boy Samuel lying on a mat in the dark before he dismantles a corrupt priesthood. And here, Isaiah binds the total availability of HINENI to the ballistic trajectory of shalach. He is not volunteering for a temporary assignment. You probably read right past the word that connects them. It looks like a dusty piece of antique furniture. A filler word. He is offering himself as a projectile. HINENI is not a polite hand raised in the back of a classroom. It is the surrender of a human arrow to the tension of a divine bow. If something about this kind of absolute surrender scares you, but also stirs up a hunger you've never quite known how to name, you're exactly who this channel is for. Drop a thought in the comments and hit subscribe. Because every week we go deeper into the text than you knew was possible. So Isaiah is fired into the dark. He walks out of that temple to speak to a people who will not listen, knowing his obedience will cost him his reputation, his comfort, and eventually his life. He carries the weight of that single word until the day he dies. But the Hebrew language does not hold a monopoly on this kind of surrender. When the biblical timeline jumps forward 700 years, the language of the empire will change, and the word will cross over into Greek, and the person who speaks it next will endure a fire much closer than a coal on the lips. A young woman sits in the heavy shadows of a stone house in Nazareth. The air pressure suddenly drops. Here I am. Or in the older translations, behold. Modern editors often drop it entirely. They smooth it out to make the dialogue flow better. A messenger of terrifying light stands in the dirt of her room. Speaking of ancient thrones, endless kingdoms, and the shadow of the Most High, the biology he announces is impossible. The social cost he demands is catastrophic. She knows what the whisper of a small town sounds like. She knows how heavy a throwing stone feels in the hand. She knows the cold, unforgiving stare of a rigid religious law. The messenger stops speaking. The room goes entirely quiet. You can hear the dust settling on the clay floor. Mary is staring down a timeline of public ruin. And yet, she does not negotiate. She does not ask for a map of the future. She does not ask for a defense attorney to explain this to her fiancé. She simply speaks the Greek equivalent of the oldest blank check in the world. Luke records her story in Greek. Centuries earlier, when Jewish scholars translated the Hebrew scriptures into the Greek Septuagint, they needed a word to carry the explosive weight of Hina. They chose the Greek word idu. It means behold, look, or see. And in Luke 1:38, Mary bows her head and says, Idu, the servant of the Lord. Let it be to me according to your word. Look upon me. Here I am. Her answer is not a victim's resignation to a cruel fate. It is a prophet's violent agreement with the will of God. For a 21st century reader, they swap it for look or pay attention, or they just erase it from the page. The men of the Old Testament spoke their HINENI and walked up physical mountains or into smoking throne rooms. This teenage girl speaks her I do and allows the mountain and the throne to be formed inside her own body. She offers her reputation. She offers her womb. She offers her blood. This is the blinding power of the word. It is the ultimate vulnerability. It is standing completely exposed before the creator of the universe and refusing to pull a cloak over your shoulders. It is the absolute absence of hiding. But this kind of naked availability goes against every single survival instinct we possess. Because long before Abraham or Isaiah or Mary ever said, "Here I am," the very first human beings heard the voice of God walking through the dry leaves of a garden. And they gave a very different answer. You can feel the echo of those dry garden leaves every time the quiet of your own bedroom forces you to face a calling you have been avoiding. We are a species addicted to the shadows. When the divine voice walks into our reality and asks, "Where are you?" our default human posture is almost never HINENI. It is deflection. It is risk management. It is retreating into the thick, protective foliage of our own making. You hide behind your calendar. You hide behind a wall of theological debates, or the blue glare of a phone screen at midnight.